Okay, everyone, thank you for being here. This is our final open mic of our virtual retreat. And for those of you who are new here, we at Abode Press do a virtual retreat every summer in the month of June. And our wonderful fellows, we nearly have about 60 of them total, study under incredible talent of instructors who specialize in poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and everyone is working on their craft, building community with one another throughout the month of June. Our programming is very focused on anti-racism and intersectional work, and a lot of our fellows embody those values and share that with us in this space. So we're super, super excited to celebrate their writing tonight and to hear them read. I'm trying to think of some things. If you need closed captions, we have that available at the bottom of the tab if that would be useful for you. This is an open mic. This is a reading series. So that means if you love something, don't be afraid to send little hearts in the chat, to send your favorite lines in the chat, to celebrate the writers in any way that you can think of, because we love love. And so we're very, very excited to celebrate everyone and to hear them read. And thank you all again for being here tonight. We have a total of about 13 readers for the evening. And then at the end, I'm going to ask anybody who's not a part of the retreat to help me celebrate everyone one last time before asking you to log off so we can have some closing remarks with our fellows, sort of reflect on this retreat experience together before we officially end the retreat, which is always really sad with how fast it goes, but it's always really lovely to also close it out with an amazing open mic with our fellows. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Diamond Braxton. I'm the founder of Abode Press, just to introduce myself, and I'm looking forward to introducing our fellows for the evening. So our first reader for tonight is Aileen McGraw. She, they is a writer and caregiver. Their writing embodies intimacies of fractured and reformed families, pain and pleasure, and what we owe each other. Aileen is pursuing their MFA in writing at the School of Art Institute of Chicago, where she lives with her identical twin brother. Welcome, Aileen. Aileen.
Thank you so much, Diamond. And it's such a gift to be in community with all of these amazing artists. I'm so, so grateful. I'm going to read a prose poem. My home genre is creative nonfiction. And so all you need to know is that when I snap my fingers, we're switching sides of the page, but also it's this reckoning that's going on with me. It's called Eraserhead. Skin rips off my palms. A steel barbell framed with cast iron plates slams onto rubber plywood floor. I huff yes, clench my gut, and pound my hips. My legs burst from black spandex shorts in all their pink chicken skin glory. Hell yeah, Stella says, snapping me to attention. Draped in a sweatsuit, my gym friend claps in the squat cage next to my deadlift platform. I respond in spurts. Eep, yay, thanks. A shimmy and a heel flare ripple out of me, the ghost of competitive cheerleading that still haunts me at age 33. Shit, that hurts, I say, wagging fingers, flinging wrists, and silently adding, so good. Powerlifting in this basement gym, sour with sweat, thick like Vaseline, has become my mortal and pestle for all this rage, to paint source and reason onto the heartbeat in my neck. It's those plates, that barbell, that gym bros entitled advice. It's not the stale, humid air that permeates my orange Subaru as soon as I park, or the South Chicago curb where I leave her sitting in the driver's seat. It's not heart body, the me who feels, who I cleave and leave wholesale whenever I see dad. I swear I won't be long, I tell her. It's not the dead skin wringing his couch because his early onset dementia renders him too weak to shower, or that I'll never again hear him strum Led Zeppelin's Tangerine from the creaky wooden hallway. It's not that his state-sanctioned slippage through the cracks congeals alongside the erasure and obliteration of beloveds everywhere, from the little village discount mall a half mile away to the library in Gaza City, the living room in Beirut. No, it's not that. Lidocaine coats my palms. I lift my skirt and smear medical-grade goop over my knee. I dry exfoliated the area, hoping that numbing cream could seep deeper, could ease me into chaos I call home. I slide onto the tattoo bed. Ready? The artist asks. I pop my gum, grip my pointy fidget toy, and lie. Yes. With the press of a button, their coil machine buzzes. They raise their brows, a quiet buckle the fuck up, and plant needle and ink into my knee. Even with lidocaine, something hot, boiling water, bubbling olive oil, ricochets from kneecap to ditch and curls up my throat, my spine, my mind. 30 some tattoos in, this is why I come here, to curate my pain. Here, I can say more or not today or that's enough. Here, I'm unavoidable. Unravel that calculated chaos. Unravel that nothing will bring dad back, but he's still here. That the best part of my week is when he asks me if my DIY bleach hair is supposed to be that yellow. I've since resolved the issue. Unravel that we make animals of our siblings, that one of my we's, unless I rip and remake it, is a soul dead white culture, that one universe lost is too many, and let me count. Unravel how powerlifting is the best thing to ever happen to my tits, and if you need photo reference, just search buff Hello Kitty. That perfection still holds a vice grip around my strength, my recovery, and yes, my freedom. Unravel how words tremble, that as these Matu Gwendolyn writes, the role of the artist is to load the gun, and ammo is not hard to find. Coconut oil, oopsies. Coconut oil coats my palms. God bless a glass brick bathroom window. When I shower around 1:30 p.m. on weekends, the light hits right. Because I violated my lease and painted the walls pink, my bathroom glows like hard candy. Once the water's off, I grab my bottle and baste my body. For a moment, I let myself feel soft. My therapist, shout out Mary, recently asked me when, if ever, I'm not bracing for something, some shoe that remembered to drop. Moisturizing, I said. What once felt gratuitous has become ritual, these tiny, huge moments where, for once, I release my belly when I exhale. What if you let yourself full belly breathe more often? She asked. What she meant, what if you left yourself less often? When I get in my love's car, I grease the seats shiny. They laugh and tangle our fingers. I feel their rings, the spine-like one on their pinky, the Ouroboros eating itself on their thumb, the black tourmaline on their middle finger. I cross my legs, but they're so freshly oiled, they won't stay put. That's some freak shit, they say, and I love it. I love it and it lingers, their comic cackle. Oopsies. I love it and it lingers, their comic cackle, one of my favorite sounds. I love it and it hurts, the dad who emerges semi-lucid with unintentional insults. The hope I find when he says that he lives in abject horror, because abject is a great word, and if dad is getting creative with verbiage, maybe he'll snap out of it. I love it and it endures, the promise I make to him, to us, you're stronger than you think. I love it and it heals, cross-country writing check-ins that never get to writing. The "you're not crazy" paired with what Kimon Felix wrote this March. Now is a good time to go mad. I love it and it fuels the endless vessels we have to channel our weird ass skills into acts of care. I love it and I stay more often than not these days with Heart Body, the terrifying, bleeding, beautiful thing that keeps me here with us. Thanks, y'all. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Aileen, for going first. And I love that you brought powerlifting into that piece. I feel like I don't see enough powerlifting in writing. And I mean, maybe that's just like my own selfish thing, but as a powerlifter, I'm like, yes. And I love that buff Hello Kitty line. It was so good. Um, Thank you so much for sharing your words with us. Our next reader for the evening is Serena Lukas Bhandar, is a witch of settler Punjabi, Sikh, Welsh, and Irish ancestry with ties to Mohkinstsis, Calgary, and Lechlungen territory on Vancouver Island. Serena was a 2023 Lambda Literary Fellow in Nonfiction and a 2025 Banff Center resident in science fiction. Her first chapbook of poetry, This Dying Body, from Rahelia's Ghost Press 2022, weaves themes of transcendence and substance abuse in homage to The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle, who received a copy and loved it. Her poem As Medicine won the 2023 Priscilla Uppal Memorial Award from Cantheus, and she is a longstanding member of Room Magazine's editorial collective. Welcome, Serena.
Hi, everybody. Oh, it's so wonderful to see all your faces. My mom and my little sibling are also watching, and I'm just really joyful that I get to share part of my novel in progress with you all. The novel is called Sensate State. It's set in Montreal, a more dystopian Montreal, and is about sextillionaire, so a trillionaire times many more, who decides to use this fungus to connect people in this building he's taken over. And he's trying to pit trans people against transhumanists, really trying to solve all the apocalypses by making people just find solutions for him, even if they're not really effective or possible. So the section I'm going to read from is about that villain, and it's from that point of view of that villain, Theo Q. Nix, and his graduate student, Layla Zod, who has been roped into the whole kind of disaster waiting to happen, and is also yeah, realizing how much hallucination is involved in this kind of save the world while destroying it jig. So I'll just start reading and I'll see how far I get in it. And just a trigger warning for use of a homophobic slur and some black accent being used by a non-black person. From the Piare Arcana, which is Punjab and Latin for beloved mysteries. The Mother. An iridescent fungal bloom with budding white pseudoflowers proliferates over the northeast swath of the shell of a great Chelonian landmass. The life form's charcoal black roots slither deep into the turtle's keratin. They cascade through the crust of her shell, her home. They spread wide far all over her territories, except for a handful of scant patches where the controlled burns turn them away briefly in pulsing swaths. Even here and there, the bloom buds anew, faster than any blaze can take the land back. I am the mother. I cast light on all. When I finally consciously emerge, it is to witness events in the scrotal sanctum, otherwise known as the balls room, on my first day of consciousness. I see that he who is identified as Theo Cunix says that we must not race to get humankind into space. We can't waste our pace on one pursuit forsaking all others. This tower, expanded by the mother's growths, would really make the perfect scaffold for a space elevator. But that would take decades. We don't have decades. We cannot fight myths and lies with any arsenal left, less than the truth freed from language and told by the base chemical activity of our bodies. To continue to fight words with others is to tell the thousand heads of the Hydra to share the meal of their tail between them. In the village of my youth, we cremated children lost to the 5 droughts, in bonfires built on the ashes of our elders. You see, when the British were in power, they had banned the ritual, said toxic elements from the bubbling fleshes polluted their canals, and could only lead to greater conflagrations across their breadbasket, their tasteful treasure hoard. We refused to stop, for our cycles of pre-incarnation depended on released sparks from the flames to allow our spirits to pass on. But the hordes of white coats came like a blinding plague and extinguished darkness and fire alike. This is when I gleaned the eternal truth. Culture, religion, technology, none of those properties hold their value in the long view of deepest time outside of time. Colonial wisdom in both the British's old Raj and their former Canadian state holds that land assets assess and aggregate their value beyond the decades of decay that afflict all other material belongings. But when the sun expands, all of their worlds will be inevitably obliterated. There is always another apocalypse awaiting to happen. The only real estate is the body rendered immortal, that which I offer you now, through memory and through the mother. Meanwhile, Layla Zod was thinking that by the time she felt sick, it was already too late. She should have noticed that she couldn't distinctly describe her symptoms to herself even then. Not even the metallic bubblegum taste that would soon inflame her tongue's buds. And I knew within days would force her to swallow her tonsils whole like a melted marshmallow. Mellow. She was still high even then, when she believed she was safe in utopia, had made it in alive and ready to be implanted. Then Nyx did something I did not expect. He began to rap. I'm a sexy sextillionaire. It's in the name. Can't win this fame or game the blame, 'cause grief is my lover. I fuck like my father. My seed waters the mother. And others give me grace. There's only one place to race for. The future. It's ours, and it's here. Look upstairs. Feeling pretty in your pink bones? Pure peer-to-peer dominion coming all over us. Domino from heaven, knocking down dominatrices, tricking up the fucking flag all the way to the horned gatelight gas boss girl keep. Flee the fucking flag to me, boys. Want to be my homie? That's Polari for fag. I'm a homo socialist, not a pederasterisk. Come through my blase blaccent because I can't see a way out of here without us finna fix the world. All y'all are clever alexithymics. Find your marks to go steady with, and then you'll be. Layla's odd notices Theo collapse. As he does so, her head explodes in instant migraine. She buckles over as her bowels roil, sees up, and shoot shove down and out of her asshole. She knows then, as the mother always knows, that her immortal body is ready to be birthed, whether or not she still desires it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Serena. I feel like I was transported into this world that you've created. It was so beautiful and such killer lines. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, our next reader for the evening is Meron Fikru. She, her is an Ethiopian American writer based in Seattle, Washington. In her nonfiction writing, she shares social commentary on politics, tech, culture, and criminal justice for her blog. In terms of fiction, she writes stories of formidable women battling dystopian and/or haunting environments. Her work prompts us to interrogate our assumptions and to challenge the systems that surround us. Her writing is grounded in history and is deeply feminist, anti-colonial, anti-capitalist, and anti-racist. Her literary mentors, favorite writers are James Baldwin, Octavia Butler, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Omar El Akkad. Okay.
Thanks, Diamond, and thanks everybody in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna read a excerpt from my novel. It's a horror story, and I'm gonna try to be mindful of time. So it's gonna sound a little abrupt just because I can't read everything. But yeah. Let Amaye tell it. Roxbury was cursed. There was a story of the little girls who disappeared in the 70s, never to be seen again. As a child, those girls used to live in Nadia's nightmares. She couldn't quite wrap her head around the idea that four girls left their homes for a school camping trip one day, said their goodbyes to their loved ones, not knowing that those would be their final goodbyes. Amaye said the town erupted over it. Unfortunately, not even the ire of the residents was enough to bring back those girls. Search parties went on for months, with teams committed to scouring the area. Years later, one of the mothers of the girls lit herself on fire in front of the police station. So overcome with her grief and their indifference, she felt that the only option she had left was to set herself and the station ablaze. Amaye would say you could still smell smoke wafting its way through the police station, even years later. Perhaps her spirit had never left the building, Nadia wondered. In hushed tones, Amaye would speak somberly about one of her old classmates, Samrawit. Samra was a promising young student in the 80s, a beautiful, brilliant girl. Amaye said she was incandescent, kind, extremely witty, seemingly on track to change the world. Until she began to notice a shadow trailing behind her. He just always seemed to be there. At every corner, everywhere she turned, there he was, frozen in her line of sight. Like a whisper in the night, she could never quite hold on to him. She felt his presence more often than she could see it, which naturally made it all the more difficult for anyone to believe her. Samra never felt alone again. That sinking feeling settled in the pit of her stomach, burying itself in her body. She would catch glimpses of this nameless shadow always looming in her periphery. This shadow paralyzed the girl. He'd effectively latched her mentally, physically, and psychologically in place at all times. The sense of an omnipresent surveillance completely changed her ability to move throughout the world. And to make matters worse, nobody would take her seriously, MIA would lament. The shadow never left any trace of himself behind and never stayed in one place long enough for Samra to get a picture of him. The police told her she had no case since he hadn't done anything yet. Apparently, the people sworn to protect her felt she would need to be brutalized before any action could be taken to save her. But what would be the need for any saving retroactively? If the worst case were to happen, a chill shot up Nadia's spine at the thought of it. Samra's professors and administrators were no better collaborators, uselessly claiming that their hands were tied. Maya said Samra eventually got so depressed she simply never left her bed again. He had stolen her spirit, Nadia thought to herself. Roxbury seemed like a normal enough town to Nadia. She took in the sights as she pulled in, a small red brick coffee shop, an indie bookstore, a few thrift shops. She slowly drove through the narrow streets, taking stock of her new surroundings. For a town just a few hours outside of Seattle, she found herself desperately longing for anything in the scenery that would remind her of home. A craft store, cute, she thought to herself. Evergreen trees framed the sides of the road. She glanced through her rearview mirror, then looked side to side. A pharmacy, a hospital, an elementary school all rolled by as she made her way down the main road. Everything seemed pretty normal. For all of the lore that preceded it, at its surface, Roxbury seemed to be just like any ordinary small town. The only thing that felt even slightly off was the silence. She was so used to taking comfort in the noises of the city. The chatter of school children, friends commiserating on balconies. The world seemed so much quieter here. The air even felt more crisp. Coming from the city, this level of silence unsettled her. It draped over her shoulders, enveloping her in a way that she was unprepared for. She'd never lived anywhere quiet enough to hear the wind brushing up against the trees. She wanted so desperately to relax into this newfound sense of calm, but she couldn't help but feel a chill stretch across her chest. She shivered. When she first asked to take on the Roxbury story, Nadia had to suppress the alarm bells that initially went off in her head. She'd always held on to her grandmother's stories of the town. Maya had escaped it long ago, but Nadia could always sense the temperature drop in her grandmother's tone whenever she would mention Roxbury. Witnessing how Amaye's brows would furrow at the thought of it and the pregnant pauses that ballooned through the room as she chose her words slowly, Nadia was well aware from an early age that something was off about this town. Nadia began to cough. She felt herself getting choked up, remembering it all. Even as a little girl, Nadia could never understand why it seemed that rage and grief were inevitabilities of womanhood. At every mention of Roxbury, Maya would shake her head and whisper under her breath, "No woman could be happy there." Nadia swallowed, feeling flames kick at the back of her throat. Nadia steadied herself, thinking of her grandmother. If she were still here, Maya would tell her to remember who she was. Besides, no need for a seasoned journalist like herself uh, to no, like herself to let her knees buckle. And she refused to let that testosterone-filled newsroom sense any fear. She could handle this story. What was there to be afraid of anyways? Her hands tightened around the steering wheel as she continued to push her car forward. Her lips curled as she remembered how the men in the newsroom had responded to the Roxbury case. Now I'm at time, but there's more, but it's fine.
Oh my God, that's so good. I feel like, yeah, you did such a good job of creating this, like, I'm uneasy and I want to know where it's going. So definitely you and Serena have to keep us posted on where your projects, where we can read them when they get there, because you both have, I love the novels. It's so cool to see these longer projects that you all are working on. Thank you for sharing that. That was great. Um, our next reader for the evening is Eva Maria Saavedra, is a first-generation Peruvian-American poet, educator, and single mother born and raised in New Jersey, where she currently resides with her son. She received her BA from SUNY Purchase and an MFA in Writing and Translation from Columbia School of the Arts. Her chapbook Thirst was selected by Marilyn Hacker for the Poetry Society of America's 2014 New York Chapbook Fellowship. Her poetry has appeared in Callaloo, the Acentos Review, Apogee Journal, and Pink.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to be reading three poems for today, two short ones and like one that's like slightly longer. Just for a little bit of context, I guess, of the first one that I'm reading, the title and the first few lines of it come from a Marvel movie because when I heard it, I was just like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. It's so true. Wanda, your children aren't real. You created them using magic. That's what every mother does. In your reality, they are products of grief, rocks in your shoe, persistent memory. In mine, he's the shame that catches my tongue when I spit out judgments. Don't be mean, mommy. He's the moon, captured in a reflection pool, a light in a dark ripple. How do you like your coffee? He asks me as we sit down at the white marble table. Black, no sugar. Why? He asks. I like to taste what I'm drinking, which is to say, I hate when we choke back bitterness at the expense of honesty. As in, there are things I don't vocalize out of fear. Like I secretly hate my inability to have alone time. I've thought about quitting poetry. Like healing isn't linear and touch should never be forced. I know this because a year ago, when my then boyfriend reached under my shirt to cut my left breast, I elbowed him in the face. I say it was a reaction of being startled, but what I meant to say is I remember the click of the lock. It was at that moment I knew what would follow. He was older, a drunk, and unable to keep anything fresh in his fridge, so I learned to drink my coffee black that summer. And this is my last one. M tells me he hates church. I say hate is a word I reserve for certain occasions, like my first bleed every month. The way people insist Matthew is interchangeable with Mateo, and I could say you're not wrong. I give way to the bend in my legs and brace myself for the feel of wood on my knees. My scars tell stories of being wine drunk and falling in the middle of First Avenue on my way to the uptown train home. I wanted to live, I'll tell you. The truth is, addiction runs in our veins, and I'm lucky to be here looking at your face, wondering how to address such a strong statement coming from your 6-year-old lips. A world in which I don't wake to my mattress to squeak as you crawl into my bed at 3 a.m. is far too painful to imagine. It's hard, Em, to love something so limiting, so human. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing those powerful pieces with us. I loved all of them. They were wonderful. Yeah, I really loved how you set up the first one, and then that line was just like, ah! So good. Thank you for sharing your poetry with us, Eva. Our next reader for tonight is Gabby González. She, they is a queer poet and fiction writer of Afro-Caribbean ancestry, born and raised in New York City. Her work investigates grief, lineage, queerness, and pleasure. She is currently based in Brooklyn, where she is employed as a social worker. Welcome, Gabby.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Also happy Pride. If anyone is in, New York, or very happy to be here. I have 2, maybe 3 poems, depending on time. The first one is Mama calls me at the club to remind me there's only one moon. Heed this warning. Dance too much and you'll start to see stars. They will appear quite ordinary at first, incandescent light bursts bumping to the base, blue-orange fire skirts whirling under strobe light, mixing with the green fluorescent to paint the room alive. Soon they will seize you. Brilliant glow, gaze, searing skin-tight nylon and sweat, tempting you towards pockets of the discotheque where there is only midnight drumbeat decadence. Here, here, there is pleasure. Here, here, there is delight. Spilling from the wastes of man in steady streams of spellcast, I urge you to stay clear of this sorcery, which saw shackles and stamps them lifeless. It may smell sweet at first, machete sugar cane dripping juice down its neck, but once you taste it, this honey lilt called liberty, born of chanting chest thumps and thrashing fists, you won't survive the sunrise. The moon moves toward sleep and you return its skin left bare in a body still seized on behalf of other people's daylight. When your hips ache, creaking stories of capture, you dress them in silver and swing them free. You drill this movement into something you can believe, light cutting through a smokescreen history. I am sorry for calling you at such a late hour. I know how busy survival keeps you, just needed to remind you of all there is still left to be done. Thank you. And then the second one is sometimes survival looks like eating veggie straws on the bathroom floor and crying, after Jody Chan. It was cold and then it was still cold, but at least there was moonlight. The door opens and I am scintillate silver, beams anointing my kaleidoscope vessel and atmospheric blessing. I called home yesterday and there was no answer beyond grinding teeth and crumbling cassava. It was so cold last night. I thought I'd die, a colorless whisper of memory, forgotten by yet another person I christened love. I'm not sure why you left me here, unraveling and fraught with forgiveness. But when you bring me to your lips and spill light into me, I think I understand what a person means when they say salvation. Heartstrings salivating for a sliver of self, you are holding me, and there is light here, edging on the beginning of something warm. I move towards it like my heart depends on it, because it does. And then I am caught in your teeth, and then I am clutching at your lips, and then I am flesh at your feet, and then you are satisfied, and I am the ghost that lives in your belly. Thank you. And I think I have time for, I think I have time for one more. This one's short, and was recently published in Voicemail Poems, which is really cool. And this is A Childhood Bedroom is a Whole World, after Cheryl Boyce Taylor. There was always someone daydreaming, hurtling towards the other world, falling for somebody's son, grass-stained knees, weaving in and out of love, condemning their mother tongue, twisting tradition out of ghost tale, crossing an ocean on a papier-mâché boat, painting their nails black, dressed in robin's egg blue, bright red gushing between them legs, having a tea party with a beast, mistaking a father for a prince, bothering the future from a question mark, counting sheep, learning to read between the lines, reading limbs, shrouding their body in glitter, befriending the witch within, making mud soup under moonlight, drinking it all in, commending Mother Earth, bound by something soft, tender-hearted, beating on a kitchen drum, bruising their ego, begetting life in verse, crooning in arms, blessed, divinely alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabby. That was awesome. I loved all of them. I'm still thinking about that line about spilling light and thinking of salvation. I think, yeah, really incredible work. Thank you for sharing all of that with us tonight. Our next reader is Sasha Charlemagne. She, they is a writer and researcher with a background in publishing and cultural criticism. Her creative and academic work focuses on the history of Black lesbian identity and sisterhoods in publishing, working to create tangible evidence of their lives, their art, and the conversations most important to their histories through short stories, artist books, zines, and similar short-form works. She received her bachelor's at Howard University before completing a master's in media studies at Pace University. Welcome, Sasha.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm going to try to get through this. For some context, this is an excerpt from a story. It is a story of two young women in their high school years, Nadine and Nikki, who are very close friends, who also are sort of discovering each other and themselves and their sexuality in their high school years. And it's sort of a coming of age bit. At school, Nadine continued her newly invigorated study of what made women in Mrs. Bernard's music class. Largely due to efforts to appease her mother's vision in whatever small ways she could, Nadine was a wonderful student and well loved by the great majority of her teachers, but it was a simple fact that she could not play the violin, worth a damn if you held a gun to her head and prayed over it in every tongue, known to every seeker of saviors from here to hell. She was only there because her mother was obsessed with the posture and particularity she felt violin playing could impart on a growing girl. If it were up to Nadine, she would have taken drama classes instead. The girls in drama class were allowed to wear far more interesting outfits, and some of them would even sneak backstage to touch up each other's faces with makeup before the shows. They got away with it too, with the pressures of unforgiving stage lighting as a reasonable enough excuse for this desire to play around with lipstick and powder without being reprimanded by mothers and school teachers. But no, Nadine was stuck in Mrs. Bernard's orchestra class, and her frustration only worsened when faced with Mrs. Bernard's harsh almond eyes and oversized rectangular glasses. Their large, deep burgundy frames sat just a few inches above a mouth coated in a brick red lipstick. Every day, the same. Nikki was too ashamed of her poor playing to pay as much attention to that mouth as she would have liked to, especially when that brick red coated mouth took to cussing her out between songs, as her lack of at-home practice effort was made very clear. The edges of Mrs. Bernard's lips curled around corners of Nadine's name, sometimes leaving her with a brick-colored smudge just below her bottom lip. Mrs. Bernard's most impressive attribute was not her mouth, nor her obvious achievement for being the only Black woman teacher at Nadine's school. No, Nadine found herself most fascinated by how her teacher managed to smell of peaches and gardenias, no matter the time of day. It could be first thing in the morning with the city's haze of school bus exhaust and cigarette smoke lingering on the young girls' sweaters and stinking up their hair, or after lunchtime when Mrs. Bernard had walked her class back from a cafeteria that smelled of fish and days-old grease, no matter what they said was on the menu. She never smelled of smoke or sweat or cafeteria mystery meat, well, sort of. It was all under there somewhere, but she must have taken great pains to make sure she was always layered in something that smelled of herself, of gardenias and fresh fruit, her signature. How marvelously special it must be to grow old enough to know exactly what it is that you like and to trust yourself enough to stick with it. Signature thick-rimmed glasses, signature brick red lipstick, and a signature scent that filled Nadine's nostrils as her long, strong-looking legs swung across the room to reprimand her yet again. It was a Thursday afternoon, just after a particularly good reprimanding, when Nadine's curiosity about her teacher sent her digging around in Mrs. Bernard's desk. Mrs. Bernard was tearing apart Barbara Bennett and her sister Cece from ripping each other's hair out over a supposedly stolen pencil. The school should have known better than to put twin sisters in the same classes for most of the day. But their scuffling gave Nadine just enough time to crawl up under a large cherrywood desk covered in sheet music. There in Mrs. Bernard's desk, nestled between pads of sticky notes and a spare pair of bright red reading glasses, Nadine found a little bottle of orange-yellow liquid with a silver cap. On its side, the name Charlie, scrawled in what Nadine thought to be a less than presentable script, but it was a pretty enough bottle with a pretty enough smelling liquid inside. She twisted off the perfume's cap and imitated her mother's morning ritual, dabbing a little onto her wrists and behind her ears. And quickly she was wrapped up in that familiar, warm, distinctly feminine smell, distinctly Mrs. Bernard smell of peaches and gardenia flowers. This Charlie must have been what made a woman out of Mrs. Bernard. Though Nadine could have sworn her husband's name was David, she never really cared much to ask. So whoever Charlie was, he could have at least sprung for a bigger bottle. Nadine doused herself in the stuff and laughed quietly, just thinking about the face her good friend Nikki might make if she went home to hang out smelling of Mrs. Bernard, the smell of a bona fide grown-ass woman, on her during their next after-school study session, or if it might pass as a budding addition to a womanness all her own.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Sasha. I love Nadine's character so much. I could just like she's so funny. That was a really, really wonderful reading. I loved that excerpt. You should share this story. Is it out or are you still working on it?
Still working on it, yeah.
Okay, when it's out, you should send it in the Discord so we can all read it because I really would love to.
Thank you.
So much. Yeah. Our next reader for the evening is Daniel Barrios. Él is a Dominican Puerto Rican writer and educator from Staten Island, New York. His debut collection of short stories, A Good Impression, is forthcoming from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, Cornerstone Press, 2028. He is the winner of the Brooklyn Review's 2023 fiction contest. This time it's personal. His writing appears in About Place Journal, Tendon Magazine, Pleiades Magazine, Naugatuck, River Review, and others. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Diamond. Um, I'm going to be reading tonight from my debut collection, and this story was published about 2 years ago in the Brooklyn Review, and it's called A Good Impression. And I'll be reading an excerpt, so these are like sub-chapters, and I'll be reading from chapter 3. A Good Impression. Gomez pulled me aside, and I followed him out of the shipping room. He guided me to the loading dock of the corporate building and pulled out a vape pen and inhaled the pen until he began coughing violently. First things first, he said, catching his breath. You gotta loosen up. You're too stiff. I listened to what he had to say. I'm gonna tell you a few things, he said, blowing clouds of cotton candy smoke in my face to get you by. I nodded, and he passed me his vape. These people, the Johnsons, they're loaded, he said. Loaded off drugs? Loaded off of your hard work and sweat, he said. If you drop a crown, break a denture, it doesn't matter, maestro. No one is losing a meal. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, I said. Give me back the pen. You're chiefing. And another thing. Lunchtime is your time. Take your time. For the love of God, kid. This place will run with or without us. So better off taking your time. I liked Gomez, even if he was pussy whipped by the Johnsons. Maybe he had no choice. And what about the missing crown? I asked. Forget the damn crown, Gomez said. They'll remake it. Big deal. I thought you were going to yell at me back here. I ain't your boss. How long have you worked here? I asked. 26 years at the end of winter, he said, spitting and coughing. Did you always want to be a dental tech? My life was set after the job corps. Like the Peace Corps? Hell no. They sound the same. I was a legend back then, he said, passing me his vape. I got kicked out of every high school in New York when I was a teenager. They shipped me to the job corps in Kentucky. That's where they trained me to work with teeth. You learned the trade at a juvenile center? Damn straight, he said. Isn't Kentucky racist? Most of America still is, he said. First night on the bus ride to the center, the bus driver told us to shut the fuck up if we didn't want to die. The streets was all dark, except for fire burning in the distance. We drove through an organized KKK meeting and held our breaths as the bus climbed the hill of the street. Once we got to the top of the hill, we could see the pointed white masks shadowed by their flames. The bus driver floored the gas as we went down the hill, and we didn't look back. Did you get a GED or something from that place? I got kicked out from there too. Started a riot in the mess hall. No one forgets my name in Kentucky. I was a badass. You still are, I said. Don't gas me up, maestro. You never got your high school degree or your GED? Nah, he said. And you're a master dental technician? I said. Yeah, he said. That is badass, I said. Hit this and shut up, he said. I took some more hits from Gomez's vape. I can help you, I said. Help me how? He asked. I can help you get your GED. Pfft, he coughed. I'm too old for that shit. You're never too old for education. You gonna teach me? I'll tutor you. If you want. What's the catch? He asked. You help me around the lab. I already am, he said. Por supuesto, I asked. ¿Qué pasa, juez? Dario said. Dario was a Honduran dental tech who worked off the books for the Johnsons the last 10 years. Pásame el lápiz, he said. Gomez passed him the vape. Today's Mrs. Johnson's birthday, he said. Están cantando happy birthday right now, and they got a pastel for Mother Moose. Damn, we missed the cake, Gomez said. They asked for you, Dario said. Damn, I said. They never celebrate our birthdays, pinches gringos. They only celebrate their birthdays and always give us the leftovers. I wanted a glazed chocolate donut, but They're always gone by the time Mr. Johnson gives us the box in the morning. We're not animals. We're people too, Dario said. Thank you.
I'm just echoing everyone. The dialogue is so incredible. I feel like I really struggle with dialogue, and I could listen to those two talk like the whole book. So thank you so much for sharing that excerpt with us. That was really, really wonderful. Our next reader for the evening is Nate OG, is a fiction writer, poet, and journalist. His fiction focuses on masculinity, cis and trans love, climate change, resistance, and Chicanx futurism. He's an MFA student at the University of San Francisco and a member of the Writers Grotto Collective. He's recently worked as a writing coach, bodyguard, and DJ. Welcome, Nate.
Thanks, y'all. I'm going to read an excerpt from a novel I'm working on called Cactus Needles. The first time Valeria had a gun pulled on her, she was headed home from volleyball practice on a frigid November night. "Did you steal his car? Have it stripped for parts?" Officer Papalardo asked as he walked toward her. He asked her the same question a dozen or so times in the years since she got her '88 Civic, so faded by the sun that the once baby blue paint was nearly silver. Until tonight, she'd always answered, "No, it wasn't stolen." It was all she and her parents could afford. It had a decent engine and squeaky brakes, two bucket seats up front, and a bench in the back, all different colors. No door panels, no carpets, no center console, no stereo. It took her 3 months to save for and find a glove box, visiting junkyards on the weekends with her papi. And that glove box was a big deal. Finally, she didn't have to keep her registration and proof of insurance in her backpack. But on this night, she simply couldn't answer that goddamn question again. The answer didn't matter anyway. It was simply all a part of what Officer Papalardo did to amuse himself, harassing the few brown, black, and native kids found in this mostly white slice of Phoenix called Ahwatukee. But he had new ideas that night too. For the first time, he walked up to her and put his left hand against the roof of her boxy hatchback and leaned with his full weight against her. He must have been twice as heavy as she was, maybe more. As he pressed against her, each breath she took got shorter. She made sure to breathe through her nose, steady and quiet. She taught herself how to do this as Papalardo's traffic stops became a routine part of her life. She'd never felt anyone put their weight on her that way, sparking a level of unease across her body she didn't know was possible. She could feel her flesh flatten against her driver's side door. She wished she could just evaporate, just disappear, just not exist until this stop had passed. She only glanced over at the police officer in the cruiser, black and white, Ford Crown Victoria, his partner, the white cop. That white cop always waited in the car and watched. She shifted her gaze forward again, trying to imagine looking right through Officer Papalardo. But all she could see at this point was the pepper-colored stubble on his neck and chin, pushing through sagging skin, like cactus needles poking through a plastic bag that got stuck by no fault of its own. "I'm so ashamed of you, little Mexican kids running around raising hell, turning this nice little neighborhood into another wetback ghetto." Looking down at her, his neck folded onto itself as he smiled and shook his head. She could smell his yellow cigarette-stained teeth and the vinegar of the sweat that leached into his uniform. "Little sluts and baby gangsters, you kids make me, a hard-working American Hispanic, look bad. You weigh us good ones down. Really, you cholas most of all." Val had largely memorized his tired sermon by this point. He didn't switch it up much. The first time he stopped her was a week after she got her driver's license. He had a similar message then, while letting her off with a warning for running a red light that was actually green. She cried, shook, and felt confused. He'd find her 2, 3, sometimes 4 nights a month, which meant she had plenty of chances to train herself to react less each time. She hoped he would get bored and stop harassing her, but that wasn't the case. Her body flinched as she heard the snap of his gun holster open up. She tried not to tremble. She didn't want him to feel that, to enjoy that. She felt his right hand move upward, followed by his gun, pushing into the left side of her body, upward again from her hips to her ribs. Ghetto tang, Are you pregnant yet? Are you going to trap some little vato? Or are you trying to ruin a white boy's life? The breaths through her nose got longer as she tried to steady herself. I tell my sons not to date Latinas, he said, running his barrel to her belly button. I made that mistake with their mom, but never again. He pushed the gun up over her chest, and the words Vista Volleyball printed on her hoodie. The barrel stopped at her neck, between her collarbones. I'm letting you off easy tonight. A little ticket for failing to signal while changing lanes. His neck stretched into the night sky, and his shoulders pulled back as he finally stepped away, lifting his weight off of her while holstering his gun. Someday, I'll stop being so nice.
Oh, thank you for that. I feel like we were all like holding our breath. I was like holding my breath. It was very, very tense, but very well written. And I love the attention to the car in the beginning. And I'm still thinking about that saggy skin line with the cactus needles. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nate. Our next reader for the evening is Sydney Sia, as an environmental health researcher, advocate, and storyteller born and currently based in Los Angeles. Her poems have been published in Sine Theta Mag, Anthroposophy Magazine, Climate Storytelling 2075, and Mass Poetry, as well as displayed at Boston City Hall and the Queen's Council on the Arts. You can find her online at Sydney J. She github.io. I'll put the link in the chat so people can check out your website. Okay, welcome, Sydney.
Thank you. You also don't have to put the website link. I think that's just my generic bio, but yeah, I appreciate it. So I just have one poem, and it's titled Family Historiography. What you'd remembered and forgotten. Deep humming of cicadas against bodies pressed close in the heat of relentless hail and rolling blackouts, tourist traps and palaces, our Laltia, cigarette smoke seeping into walls outlined by condos rising vacant, saturated with summer's humidity, cranes gathering dust and ash, as if clouds forming temples in the sky mid-flight. Rituals we remembered from distances silken and soundless and relinquished in evening, mid-air yet turbulent in the body, trails of memories spooled as details, electric shivers strumming you life. Each world's traversed in translation, mispronunciations and bent phrases, silences heavy and young, in place of proper addresses for each relative, their names, their hands and touch, reminding you, where are you from when you collect your goodbyes? Okay, I lied. I might read one more actually if I have time. I haven't read that one out loud before, so I wasn't sure what the timing was. Yeah. So this one is an erasure poem of the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, and it's just titled 1882. 47th Congress, Session 1, Act to execute certain Chinese. Whereas opinion endangers the good order, the expiration of labor shall not be lawful, that the master of any vessel knowingly foreign shall be deemed guilty on conviction. Identify who shall have come into the same passage, furnish them to go from name to custom, false name forged upon conviction, a term no more from any port or place, manifest and brought true. Approved May 6th, 1882. So that's all. Thank you guys. It's been such a joy sharing space over the last month.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for sharing those with us. I'm still thinking about the ending of the first poem that you read. I love that line so much. Such incredible work. Thank you for reading both of those for us tonight. Our next reader for the evening is Ahalia Persaud, is a Brooklyn-based writer whose work explores relationship dynamics, identity, and diaspora politics. She was in the 2025 cohort of Soundtype Music Writers Residency at Asian Arts Initiative. Ahalia is currently an arts administrator, community advocate, and her family's archivist. All right, archivist. Wait, I know how to say this. She's an MFA writing school dropout. welcome to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be reading an essay from a zine that we published at the Soundtype residency. It's called Auntie and Her Chutney. 99 Problems, but a 9-day ain't one. That's the name of the shared Spotify playlist I created when I heard that my cousin was having a baby. I was so excited to become an aunt and play it when his baby was born, but turns out we were in a bit of a pickle for this 9-day. I never got the aux passed over due to new generational customs and disapproving taste. Traditionally, Guyanese Hindus don't host baby showers, gender reveals, or even first birthdays for the newest member of the family. We prepare a ceremony that celebrates the 9th day after a child is born. The number 9, an auspicious one, and children are considered sacred, so 9 days are quite spiritual events for families. It's the day when the baby's first haircut is done by an elder who raises the child to the sun god like Rafiki, holding Simba in The Lion King. Then the baby is taken to the Atlantic Ocean for a bird bath, worshiping the goddess of water as a symbol for purification. Next comes the burying of the navel string, thanking and returning it to Mother Earth. A priest honors the Hindu name that is chosen. Prayers are made asking for the child and the parents to be blessed for the journey ahead. It is a beautiful event to witness, but the real celebration begins after the pious rituals in true Indo-Guyanese fashion, with food, music, and libations. My people of the Indian diaspora love their spices and partying so much that they inadvertently invented an hominin, chutney. There's a condiment served on the side of every Indo-Caribbean dish. There are many variations, but my favorite chutney is mango sour, the perfect blend of sweet and spice, producing a yummy gooiness that I dip piping hot pulari, crunchy on the outside, fluffy on the inside, savory split pea dough balls into. Then there's the genre of music called chutney. One well-known chutney song combines the two. Kaise bani, pulari bina chutney. How can you make pulari without chutney? If Indian folk, soca, and calypso had a baby, that would be considered chutney. These were the songs I had on my playlist and what I heard as a young girl at summer backyard parties in the 90s. I silently watched aunts, moms, and grandmas hitting the pavement with their bare feet, waist pelting from side to side, hands curling in the air, lip syncing to the melodies. They seemed so carefree from the usual household duties and life stressors, enjoying their labors of love, food, and family. What I came to learn as I got older was that these songs spoke to everyday routines of the it takes a village mentality, honoring their ancestors. I envisioned that life would turn out to be like that for me one day, but the less my generation, first-gen American, deviates from traditional norms like marriage and starting families, that fantasy is further from reality. I was looking forward to meticulously curating songs for the celebration of my unborn niece, with lyrics that recognize caretaking is not the responsibility of only the parents. There is a song, Mausi, which means maternal auntie, and it describes the aunt making sweets to celebrate and feed not only the mother, but also the rest of the family. While I don't necessarily know how to make these sweets, I would definitely rise to the occasion. It seemed to me growing up with my naivete that the adults weren't fazed by parenthood because family was around helping out where they saw fit. I assumed that this would be the case here too. However, in this day and age, I hear from new parents that they are sleep deprived, setting boundaries for healthier familiar relationships, and cautious of germs and illness. So blasting chutney music for a 9-day-old doesn't seem like the best idea. I never thought of that. Perhaps one would say, I want an excuse to throw a party. And maybe that is true. Recently, I saw a DJ duo set, Polyrhythmo and Tash LP on YouTube, spinning records of similar songs previously mentioned and some new ones I've never heard of before. They were set up indoors, tropical plants galore, and switching out vinyl after vinyl, bopping to the music before them, and Tosh LP donning a t-shirt with a Surinamese flag on it. I was brought to tears not only because of what this music means to me, but also seeing two non-Indian heritage DJs playing chutney just because. To be honest, I'm afraid that the 9-day rituals and celebrations will fade away as my elders pass on. In a strange way, Polyrhythmo and Tosh LP gave me permission that I don't need a reason to play chutney. I can honor my lineage, celebrating being an auntie with the nieces and nephews that I'm blessed to have, teaching them a thing or two when they are older. Thank you.
I love that so much. I love the braiding of music and family and food and just like, I don't know, the whole DJ. I just loved everything about that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Our next reader for the evening is Qurrat is a Pakistani academic and voiceover artist in a former life. Her nonfiction and hybrid work explore illness, shame, collective amnesia, and matrilineal histories. Q holds an MFA from the Jackson Center for Creative Writing and 2 MAs in World Literature and Applied Linguistics. She leads the Ravi South Asian Writers Collective, believes biryani is a love language, and writes from a cabin on a tomato farm in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I love that. Welcome, Q.
Hi, so I'm not gonna give a preamble of where I'm reading from. It's from a longer work. In the memoir where each of the chapter is divided into it's a letter book, and it defines one letter. So I'm gonna start with one letter. When the young no longer acquire a language, even if several older speakers remain, it is considered dying. And the community comes together to pen a parting song in a way to say, if we remember it, if we write it in a song, place its sounds upon our tongue, even when we no longer remember the meaning of it, it lives. The letter I will introduce today is Ba, Bay. When you press your lips together to hold your breath before birthing the bombing plosive Ba, you learn to let go. You learn to blow spit bubbles, babble your first name, reduplicate, release the life brimming in your mouth. The first word, Bism, in the name of, with the name of. A name, they say, is the shortest poem, the first gift given to you, your first home in language, the home you learn to embody, run away from, or recreate. When untangling your feet from sodden earth your people called home for 1,000 years, forced to carry on cattle's back unbelonging few, sometimes leaving even language behind, but there's space still for a name. I was to be the first of my generation, first grandchild to bloom in the soil my grandparents migrated to, first child to be named. And the naming have always been serious business, both theologically and culturally for us. It is said when a man complained to Prophet Omar about his disobedient son, Omar said that this man in fact had no right on his son. No right, for he had failed all 3 duties of a father. Primary and the most important being giving a name with a good meaning. The man had named his son Jual, or the dung beetle, taking away the autonomy of a child to be called with the name of something beautiful, something loved. Our family unit that included our grandparents living with my young parents undertook the task of finding a name for me that I could be loved in. When my mother was carrying me still in the safety of her womb, my grandfather traveled to Kaaba, praying on the courtyard of the cold floor. والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا ذرية قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. He returned with metallic dinky cars in cool gray, glinting against the glaring Karachi sun, expecting the first of the family to be a son. When the heat of the holy lunar month, a wide-eyed head emerged with a dark hair like Arabian Ocean, he took upon him to name her after his prayer. Before the creation, there's collapse, the movement of body, the air and organs and mouth forming to deliver a sound. A letter must be chosen first that will suit the child and determine their faith. If the child is not named with the right sound, they may become sick or worse, lost in infancy. With stakes high, the first letter was to be calculated through astrological charts, a product of my grandfather's study as a numerologist, the study he mastered as a Jantri reader, the Quranic letter he pulled out according to my Veda horoscope. The time of my birth, I was to be named with the Arabic letter Qaf. Qaf, the sound chosen to name me, the heavy clinking produced by the back of the tongue hitting the uvula, a deep guttural Q. Qaf, plosive pronounced for the back of the throat, or maybe where the articulation begins in a human mouth. Hence, I would share the destiny of Qaf, where many will fail to articulate my name, making my Qaf into English K, the sound mispronunciation, changing the meaning altogether. In someone's mouth, I was qalb, the heart, and with a slip and a lack of love, maybe I was slurred to kalb, the dog. I would learn to accept anything offered in fluid softness, dichotomies, and generosity, all diversions that would remind me that I was not, in fact, the center. My world wrapped in many names of love given as cast Lore's dreams, I became a paper mache of them. One way to tell migrants from Hyderabad and apart from the locals was how Qaf eluded them. It was my own people who found articulating my name a challenge. The Qaf turning into Kh, the wheeler Kh. In Hindi, Kh, Qurrat, meaning dry skin. Qurrat in Urdu, Qurrat in Arabic, and Qurrat in Hindi. Coolness of eyes, my grandfather said. That is what my name meant. In Arabic pragmatics, he told me that the mother's eyes becomes warm when separated from her child and cool again when reunited. Qurrat, he said, is someone who brings so much solace to your heart, someone you love so much that your eyes become cool when you see them, your heart brimming with love uncontainable, their sight making you shed tears of joy. You are my Qurrat, he would say, coolness of my eyes, joy of my heart. His eyes drew me when he tells me that every Muslim prayer for a Qurrat among his spouses and children, beloveds were the center in a world shaken by storms and set aflame. So I was a special gift to the family by God. You are my center, he would say. He would make my puny heart feel the vastness of my name, of my existence. On the first day of literature class, the professor who possessed the articulation, pause, and generosity of a poet called me with my first name, Qurrat, in fullness of it, and others followed. A poet baptizing me again with the name I had given at birth, and in return, I was in love's center again. To end this, I will leave you with another word, qaf, qismat. If written in fate, and if life lives in these lungs to articulate another ha or hi, we will meet again. And I will leave you another prayer. I wish you to be always a Qurrat. I wish you to be always in the center of love.
Thank you, Q. That was amazing. I love, first of all, how you read. I'm just like in a trance and so many wonderful lines and such a wonderful exploration of naming and your name and love. And I don't know, that was just really, really incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight. Our penultimate reader for the evening is Leslie Lopez. She, they, ella is a Dallas-raised, Chicago-based writer. She is currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Library and Information Science from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. When not crocheting badly or laughing loudly, you can find them working on their first novel about grieving lesbians, complicated sister dynamics, and playlists for every occasion. Welcome, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as Diamond said, I will be reading from my novel in progress, titled All That I Want. And the novel switches between the present day and the past, so I'm going to read an excerpt from one of those flashback chapters. August 2017. The silence of the dorm room felt strange compared to the lively conversations Perla could hear next door. She had expected to share the double with a girl who had been in her AP statistics class. When they had found out they were both going to the same college, it didn't matter that they'd barely interacted in class. The decision to live together was a matter of convenience, and that was fine enough for Perla. The two girls exchanged texts here and there throughout the summer. Mostly they complained about the lack of cute twin XL bedspreads and went back and forth on splitting the cost of a mini fridge. Then, just the day before move-in, the girl had sent a short text saying she wasn't coming. Perla knew other freshmen would have done cartwheels upon learning they didn't have to sleep, study, and otherwise lived in a crammed shoebox with a stranger. But up until that point, her life had consisted of sharing everything with her sister, and the thought of being in a new city with nobody to remind her of home made her hands sweat profusely. The girl had said nothing about why she wouldn't be moving in, but Perla still felt like it was somehow her fault. Had she dropped out completely? Was she going to commute? Had she sensed Perla's neediness and decided to save herself the trouble? The racing thoughts made her feel as though she were trapped in a plastic storage bag, like it was only a matter of time before someone sucked the air through a vacuum and shoved her under a bed to be forgotten. Who would even notice? Laughter seeped through the thin walls, and she jumped off the bed, pushing the feelings of loneliness into the ground and slipping on her dirty shoes before leaving. Outside, the sun had begun to set behind the distant clock tower. The sky looked as if someone had spilled a glass of pink lemonade over an orange tablecloth. A beautiful mess that made her wish she was sharing this mundane experience with someone else. Perla held her phone horizontally, snapped a picture, and sent it to Mitzel. Hi, miss you already, she typed. Then Perla walked up one desolate street and down another, turning only when she felt called to. She'd grown up in a small suburb an hour away, surrounded by droves of cars and cracked sidewalks that ended without an explanation. This campus, her new home, was a pedestrian paradise with parking lots bordering the residence halls and a tall garage next to the student union. It was a completely different universe. She made mental notes of each building and landmark she passed. The music hall is up the hill and on the left, next to the park and the Environmental Science Center. The gym is across from the soccer field. By the time she found the building where the majority of her classes would take place, the sky had darkened significantly, and she decided to find her way back. Perla followed the pristine concrete pathways until her residence hall came into view, where she saw other students spilling onto the recently empty streets. They traveled in packs and wore little, opting to show smooth legs and hairy chests. She understood countless classmates talk about it. Her peers weren't entirely there, if at all, to get degrees. They were there to party and make friends and see what version of themselves they could be without the imposition of parents. All these things felt like a luxury to someone like her who didn't have social currency or generational wealth to fall back on. She just wanted to survive the next 4 years without failing so she could find a job and not have to move back in with Mitzel and their ma. That was what mattered. The walk hadn't gotten rid of the weird mood she was in, but it had tired her out enough to not want to waste any more energy on feeling sorry for herself. She drifted down the hallway, ignoring the hand-painted maple leaves the resident assistant had made for each dorm. Instead of the music that had been playing getting quieter as she approached her door, the sound grew louder because it was coming from her room. What the hell? Perla asked out loud. She was so taken aback by the door being slightly open that she had completely missed the newly added maple leaf next to her own name. Hi, coming through. Perla turned around and was face to face with cardboard. She quickly stepped to the side and watched the girl stack the box on top of another. Sorry about all my shit everywhere. I'm Naomi, and you're Perla? She extended her hand for a handshake. It was a gesture that felt too formal coming from someone her own age, but Perla obliged. Yeah, that's me. I didn't know I was getting a new roommate. My friend ended up pulling out at the last minute, Perla replied, trying not to wince. Calling the girl her friend was easier than explaining. Oh, sorry to hear that. I got the lucky call this morning that a spot opened up in a double and I was next in line. I hope sharing with a new stranger isn't too much of a bummer, Naomi said, flashing a smile that seemed to glow against her tan complexion. She exuded the type of confidence that Pearl imagined resulted in invitations from strangers to join them as they headed into the night. Perla suddenly became conscious of the fact they were still holding hands. Naomi must have noticed too because she gave her hand a small squeeze and let go. Not at all, I'm sure it'll be great, Perla finally responded, trying to will her blush away. She kept her hand at her side and scanned the room. Naomi had only brought up 2 boxes and a tote bag, but some of the contents had spilled out onto the checkered linoleum floor. Perla spotted a stack of sketchbooks and a cobalt blue toolbox near her closet. Don't worry, I'm gonna get this all sorted right now. I didn't bring a ton of stuff since I've been staying in the area with a family friend, but I'll be driving back home tonight to finish packing, so you'll get to enjoy a few more days without me here. Oh, okay, Perla said, feeling a little disappointment that Naomi would be gone so soon. She wanted to ask where home was and what was in the sketchbooks, but Perla could feel her curls sticking to her forehead from sweat, and that made her self-conscious. I'm gonna go shower, I guess, so I'll see you later. She grabbed her things as quickly as possible and tried to make her way out of the room. It was nice meeting you, Perla. You too. She closed the door and finally saw the maple leaves, Perla and Naomi. She liked being part of a duo, even if its existence was limited to their room. Friendship fell out of the question, but if the two could remain friendly enough that neither would be eager to forget the other existed by the time May came around, that would be a win. Only time would tell. Thank you.
I love it. This reminds me of me falling in love with my college roommate and like just that tension. Anyways, I love that. Definitely share that with us when we can read that because I need to know where it's going. Okay, such wonderful readings, y'all. I've been just enjoying everyone, and it's been so lovely to get to hear everyone read. We're going to end the night with our final reading, Derek Yen, who writes about chronic illness, uncertainty, and care. His poems have been published or are forthcoming in Apogee Journal, Anomaly, Seventh Wave, and elsewhere. When not writing, he is a copy editor for the speculative fiction magazine Choreo, and he lives in Brooklyn with his partner, their dog, and several houseplants. Find him online at derekiswriting.com. Welcome, Derek.
Hi everyone, happy to be here with all of you, and thanks to everyone for such beautiful readings. I'm planning to read two poems. So the first one was published in Apogee Journal. It's called Vertigo on the Train. Vertigo on the train. Losing my balance implies that I had it once, that the world did not tilt immediately upon my birth, that certainty and stillness were once found, not lost the way that we missed our stop on the bus in LA and ended up miles away, refusing to ride the bus for long after we came back. Evaluate the following statement. Home implies a place that we return to. Is home then impossible? What if home is the opposite of seeking? What if losing an hour of time in spring, like the split of skin in cold weather, what once flowed smoothly, now gaps, now without? Reasoning about impossible crevices my vertigo may have fallen into, imagined cracks in our Brooklyn apartment floors like doors for mice to pop off, pop out of, perhaps to dance. Maybe they can befriend the doves cooing on the fire escape, the willpower cool beneath each pair of feet, running to catch a D train and losing, missing the ride, riding down the highway and off into a sunset the color of Moro blood oranges. Seagulls in the sky, passing pigeons, homing their way to a time, to a place. Magnetism and quantum mechanics and spooky action across a distance. Even a short distance feels the way that I miss the color of the ocean, rising waters and gaining degrees of academic institutions, of certainty. Measuring, how can you measure an absence? Loss implies knowing what would have been, countless glaciers and species, lives before bombs, before genocide, living and not losing faith in an empire implies that I had it once, that the state of this state was something like home, that homing is not also a missile, that precision of weapons and imprecision of words implies forgiving, violence in evaluating people and not just statements made for searching, finding faith in homing to people, homing like the humming of a HEPA filter, finding each other, seeding the garden, growing the way that pathos does, one leaf at a time, creating two vines from the place where one was cut, something new from losing, something in direct defiance. Evaluate the following statement. Finding togetherness implies that all that isn't lost is home. And the second poem I first wrote in a workshop with Star Davis, and it is after and with apologies to Ross Gay. And it contains an adaptation of a line by Johanna Hedva, so I'll put that in the chat afterwards. Despite the horrors, a catalog of slightly abashed love. I say I love you to the arthritic dog who rises in morning's dark hours, to the HEPA filter blinking red, then white, to bonds formed by fresh snow, crystals sintering in winter, to bonds formed by neighbors demonstrating solidarity, to light moving through time, sun to earth to moon, to tomato vines bearing lumpy, uneven flesh, to Pathos, Monstera, Sansevieria, Trifasciata, who keep green with an eyeline. I say I love you to lungs who expand, even in hypopnea index nights, though I too have felt impossible to fill. To the friend I haven't texted back, to glass jam-filled jars preserving strawberries, to knee wraps who embrace loose joints on the train, to my love, my love, my love, to new books stacked atop old books, which I also love, to fresh peach sugar crystallizing in summer, to nighttime rituals, quiet murmurs. I say I love you to squirrels ricocheting down branches, evidence of coming spring, to stainless steel pans. I say I love you to any of us too sick to throw a brick through the window of a bank, to any of us who have thrown what we can, even a word, into the gears of violent empires, to corduroy pants, wide-legged, wearing my favorite textures, to maps marked with X for every memory of someone who was once here, to you, and maps by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and to zippers, for the reminder that what is closed might open again. To the part of myself, the knot in my chest, or maybe my knee, self-aware or cynical enough to question, how much love should I feel in a time like this? To the part of myself, my tongue, or maybe my spine, alive enough to answer, as much as I can, as much as I can. And thank you all.
Oh my gosh, that was really wonderful. I think someone said tender, and that's the word that I'm kind of holding on to as I'm thinking of your poetry. It is just so beautiful and raw, and it almost made me cry. So, definitely such a wonderful way to end the open mic with such powerful words. Thank you so much, Derek, for sharing those with us. Um, I just would love if everyone could send in a bunch of little like hearts and things to celebrate all of our readers for the night and the incredible job that they all did and sharing their works with us. I would love if you all can definitely, if any of these are published, maybe post those in the chat, just so people can check out your work. But really just incredible, incredible work. And it's very clear while you are all with us this June working on your words. You all are incredible writers, and I'm so excited to see where you all go. So thank you all, family and friends, for joining in and hearing everyone read. We're going to move into our next segment, which is pretty short, but it's really us just having closing remarks and sort of coming together as a retreat family and just sort of, closing out this chapter and sort of talking about some next things and possibilities, because Abode is a home for everyone. And so there's always a place, and that means that there's always places for us to still continue to be in space together. So I am going to ask, if you are not a 2026 fellow in the retreat, feel free to log off the Zoom, but thank you so much for being with us tonight and celebrating our writers for the evening. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start moving us into our closing remarks and all of those things with the fellows. So I'm going to drink some water while I allow people.